Thank you for your kind introduction. He sounds great, this Paul, doesn't he? I'm sure I'd like to meet him. Apparently so. I want to share a little bit for the next 10 minutes or so on the theme of trust. And it's a really rare commodity in the world at the moment. And people have lost their trust in not just people, but institutions, and institutions led by people. And a lot of people have lost their trust in, can this world be a better place to live in? And I think where it's the darkest, light can shine the brightest. And when I'm not wearing a suit, I'm sometimes talking to people on the front lines of extremism and radicalization, particularly in the whole area of the far right and neo-Nazism, not just in the UK, but further afield as well. And faith becomes very real in a situation where people have put their faith in things that just haven't worked. And I think in terms of some of the language up there, our collaboration, I think as faith leaders, whether it's formal or informal leadership, I think we need to move away from the idea of conversion to collaboration. And we'll look at that in just 2 ticks anyway. There was a study done some time ago commissioned by Stephen Covey Jr. at Harvard University on trust. And they had all sorts of metrics that said that if you have an organization with trust, you'll make more money, you'll do this, you'll do that. But one of the things that came out of the study as well is you'll just have a better way of living and a better way of life. And trust leads to something. In a world where there is a deficit of trust, the research suggests that business, relationships, diplomacy, politics, name any category, happens at the speed of trust. But trust is really, really difficult because trust confronts us with things about ourselves because we don't trust other people. I'd like to think I trust loads of people, but I don't. And sometimes I don't trust myself. And what does that mean? How does that work out? How does that play? There was an old story I heard, and maybe you've heard it as well, of an old master who was incredible at crafting beautiful things out of marble. And the young apprentice came up to the master and said, how do you create such wonderful sculptures out of this big lump of marble? And he was expecting the master to give him loads of very specific instructions on, you hold the hammer like this, you hold the chisel like that, all of which are true. The skills and the techniques and the intellect and the knowledge and all of those things are true. But he turned around to the youngster and he said, it's really, really simple. He said, you knock away everything that doesn't look like the thing that you want to make. And I thought, that is incredible. We can make it so sophisticated sometimes. But I think when it comes to trust, when it comes to building trust, because we want to see peace, sometimes we have to knock away everything that doesn't look like the thing that we want to see. And that's really challenging because in a faith world, let alone a business and a political world, and I think a lot of the world revolves around 3 broad areas, business and politics. And in business, I talk about media and education, business and politics, but ideologies, isms, beliefs, religious beliefs. Actually, some of those religious beliefs we hold on to in such a way that we become sectarian. And actually, we can have dialogue, but we don't really trust people. And I think if we're going to get really honest about building peace and about establishing trust, we've probably got to have some really uncomfortable conversations. We've got to knock away some of the marble, some of the things that we hold dear, but actually gets in the way of the very thing that the world wants to see and we want to experience. Now, does that mean we have to water down our faith? No. But it might mean we have to take the edge off some of the dogma which says, if you don't believe, you're on the outside and I'm on the inside, and I'm going to win and you're going to lose, ultimately, because it's about conversion more than it's about a conversation. It's about conversion more than it's about collaboration. And that's really tough, because when the rubber hits the road, when we get away from an environment like this where we understand each other broadly, where we want the same aims and objectives, when we're actually negotiating and talking at the coalface, whether that's a coalface if I'm wearing a suit today like I was in Westminster, or I'm in jeans and a T-shirt somewhere in an estate somewhere talking to a recruiter for some agency or organisation, encouraging people to get involved with violence. Actually, we've got to cross a trust threshold. And there's things about those people that I might not like because they don't fit in with me. I might not understand because I think very differently. I might disagree with because I don't like where they come from in their faith and ideology. And actually, somehow I've got to take the first step and to have the honest conversation. And the honest conversation is painful. But I think the stakes are too high for us not to confront those things within ourselves that lead to distrust. I think the stakes are too high for me to have my preference at such a degree that it becomes a prejudice, that actually I move from collaboration to polarization. And all these things, again, sound great behind a microphone and a comfortable pulpit lectern, whatever you want to call it. But actually, in the real world, we've got to confront that within ourselves and within other people. Now, originally, I come from a Christian tradition. Eventually, I became a Christian. And the kind of Christianity I engaged with was the proselytizing type, which was you need to become, you need to believe, you need to accept. And I've been in dialogues lately with some of my friends from Islam, some of my dear friends from Islam, and they have come from that same perspective as well, both Christianity and Islam. And I can talk because I'm from within the group of Christians, so I can talk about Christians. And let's just play just for a few moments with this thing of trust and peace amongst two huge religions where there are groups of people within those religions that want to see conversion. Now, this is where trust becomes uncomfortable. Because my friends and my friends' friends within Islam, my friends and my friends' friends within Christianity, they don't necessarily trust each other. Regardless of what's set up the front, regardless of what's seen on the media, they have a mistrust and a distrust. And they appeal to all sorts of historic precedents for that. And they fundamentally mistrust because they don't believe that the other person generally and genuinely wants to see the other side's goodness. And they will appeal to history, they'll appeal to modern circumstances. And it's not wholly, but partly to do with this whole notion of conversion and who wins and who loses, who's in and who's out. I think in some of the conversations around the world, that's at the heart of the matter. Business, relationships, peace happen at the speed of trust. So if I want to see something beautiful called peace liberated from this block of marble, what do I have to knock away in order to see peace? And maybe what do you have to knock away in order to see peace? I think peace is worth having the most uncomfortable trust and lack of trust-based conversation within our own hearts and in our dialogue with other people. And it's going to take safe enough, not totally safe perhaps, but safe enough environments for us to get round tables and to have dialogues and thrash those things through. From somebody from my tradition and maybe from your tradition that is into winning and converting and proselytizing, that's tough because we might just have to suspend or shave off the edges some of those hard bits. Why? For the sake of the world. Because ideas and ideologies have legs and they walk into countries, they walk into boardrooms, they walk into relationships. And we need to confront those because we take those ideas and ideologies with us wherever we go. And it affects peace and it impacts trust and it impacts relationships. I wish I could come and share you a happy story, but I think the reality is that the stakes are just a bit too high just to have our ears tickled with something nice. I think if we can get a group of people together who believe enough to confront the lack of trust within ourselves and with other people, we might just be given access to those people who can pull the levers of power. God bless you. Thank you.